From the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello, thank you for listening. Whether it's on Georgia Now, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m., the replay 8 to 10 a.m. the following day, or 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Thank you so much for listening. As you can hear, I'm a little, I'm fighting it. I got something. I don't know what it is, but I got something. It hit me like a sack of bricks yesterday, and when I tapped out after doing the show, I was like, oh, God, I had to lay down. And I lay down for 90 minutes. I literally, was out. Got some Dayquil, some throat lozenges, some lemon ginger tea, some honey. I'm doing it. I'm doing it all. Doing everything I can. I got 10 hours of sleep. I am feeling a lot better right now, anyway, than I did at this point yesterday. So that's a good thing. You know what else made me feel good? This from WXIA-TV, 11 Alive Atlanta.
Just in tonight, Democrats have flipped a state House seat that covers parts of Clark and Oconee counties. The vote to fill a vacancy after State Representative Marcus Wiedauer resigned to focus more on his business. Well, according to the Secretary of State's office, Democrat Eric Gisler is the apparent winner tonight over Republican Mac Dutch Guest. The gap, just 197 votes. Now, in last year's election, Wiedauer, the Republican, won with about 61% of the vote.
Here with me to discuss that is State Party Chair, Democratic Party Chair Charlie Bailey. Charlie, thanks for joining me, and congratulations. That's a good flip.
Yeah, man. Yeah, one, thanks for having me on, Ron. But I think you know this. There are 17 state House seats that are more Democratic than this one. And as of today, we need 10 seats to take the majority.
And if this one can be flipped, it was a Trump plus 12. If this one can be flipped, then have your number crunchers at the state party office, have they determined how many more could be with this sort of metric?
Well, it's kind of along the lines of what I just said. And in every election is slightly different. We don't know exactly what the environment will be like next year, So it's not something we can say right now. It's like, okay, of those 17, how many are going to be in striking distance, in the fall? Truth is, we don't know. But what I can say is that we are going to continue like we did with the PSC, like we did here. Here, Ron, you may or may not know this, but, we invested $50,000 in a TV ad that ran in this race. And, with the PSC, we invested $250,000 in a statewide TV and digital buy. And as long as I'm chair, when we see opportunities, we're going to go. We're going to spend directly, which, hadn't been done in 19 years, but we're going to continue to do it. That doesn't mean we're going to win every single one we get into, but we're going to win more than we lose. I can promise you that.
Yeah, that's a sound strategy. And it seems like the Republicans are almost handing, not just 2025, but heading into the midterms, 2026. It feels like Republicans are sort of handing Democrats opportunity after opportunity. Unfortunately, it's the American family that's going to have to bear the brunt of that. But affordability is something that Donald Trump wants to say is a hoax. But when you see things like ACA subsidies not being rolled forward, when you see student loan debt forgiveness going away, we just saw that headline earlier today. These expenses start adding up for the American household.
Yeah. And look, you can't message around reality. I don't give a damn what Donald Trump wants to tell himself to make himself feel better. But because of what he and Republicans on the federal level, Republicans like Mike Collins and Buddy Carter, and Derek Dooley, the worst football coach in the history of Tennessee, has cheered this along as well. Yeah. Whether it's those federal Republicans or whether it's the Republicans here in this state, Burt Jones and the Republicans in the legislature, they have taken actions that have made the American dream less attainable now than it was, 22 years ago when Republicans took power in this state. With that big billionaire bill, in coming out of D.C., that's the single largest transfer of wealth from working folks in the middle class to the very wealthy in the history of humankind. I mean, in the history of the Persians and the Romans didn't do this much wealth transfer, I mean, so that tends to show people what your priorities are. And the people of this country and the people of the state are, as you said, suffering from the choices that these Republicans have made to put the profits of billionaires and big corporations over the bottom lines that working people have.
You had a robust diaspora of Democratic operatives from throughout the state and the country, again, show up in this district to door knock for Eric. And that's, again, a testament to the sense of cohesion that you and the state party seem to have.
Yep.
Speak to that a little bit for me, because, I find that to be really impressive.
Well, we've sent out, a lot of credit goes to Eric, who's a great person, is going to be a great state rep for the people of Oconee and Clark counties. And his team, they did a lot of work to our county parties, both the Clark County Party, the Oconee County Party. And to your point, we put out to everywhere, hey, if you got some time and can get over there, to get your butt over there and get on doors. If you got some time to get on the phone, we sent around the phone banks for people all across the state to get on the line and call into that district. And people stepped up. And, I'm very proud of the entire Democratic family across the state that said, hey, when we see, a member of the family that's got a fighting chance, we're going to lean in. And so it's credit is due to, as you said, Democrats across the state that did that.
You have another opportunity with a runoff soon to come up in District 23, right, with Scott Sanders. Is it all hands on deck for him too?
Yeah, we're gonna ask everybody. We just keep having these elections in Georgia,
right?
We're gonna ask everybody. Now, that's obviously it's a tougher district. Scott's a great candidate, and even in that race, Ron too that is a situation much like Deborah Shigley's race, where in the very, very recent past and for a while, we would be totally shut out of a runoff. A Democrat wouldn't even make a runoff.
Right.
Wouldn't be close to making a runoff in a seat like that. And so we're going to continue to fight. We're going to ask everybody to lean in, and as they're getting ready for their holidays, Christmas and otherwise. But what he has already done is a testament to the momentum that we have in this state.
I had him on a few weeks ago, and I'm telling you, if you're not feeling well or you're a little under the weather or depressed, just have a conversation with Scott. He will lift your spirits. He is just a ball of energy.
He is. He's great. He's got, he's got the heart for this, and the energy and everything else. And he really has a clear idea of, we're all in this thing together. And that he's a part of this team, and it's about something larger than himself, and he's a great representative of that.
We're with Charlie Bailey, chair of the Georgia Democratic Party. When we caught up over the summer, it was your intention to make sure that we had somebody on the ballot in every state level race. How close are you to having someone on the ballot in every House district, every Senate district, every constitutional, yada yada yada?
We're further along than when we talked this summer. We've made progress. We've got some good folks in. We're not there yet, but we will be there by qualifying the first week of March. I don't know what percentage of the way we're there. We're 2/3 of the way there. We 3/4. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but we will be there. And it's people stepping up. Yes, there's these swing districts. There's the ones that are more attainable. There's ones that, frankly, as you and I talked about, like, we're not going to win. But there are people in this state that care, that understand that they are part of this broader Democratic family, that they're part of something bigger than themselves, and that them running, even in tough districts, that has big benefits for John Ossoff running for reelection,
Right.
for whoever our gubernatorial nominee is going to be, lieutenant governor nominee is going to be. And so for the people that are listening to your show, I would say if you've ever thought about running for office, reach out to us. Go to Georgia Democrats .org. Georgia Democrat, .org, singular. Yeah, and let us know. There may be a seat. You may not even realize that there may be a seat where we need somebody, and you could step up. You can also go to that website and pitch in, give a donation, and because that's what helps fuel our ability to put the $50,000 in the in the state house, whatever, in Athens, and win it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's also a good idea. I've been saying this for a while. Give to some of those down ballot races as well, because they're going to spend every freaking penny, and of course that gets folks to show up to vote for them and for the Senator John Ossoff and up the ballot. So. Speaking of ballots, there's been so much conversation back and forth about touchscreens and hand-marked paper ballots. Where has the party decided that they want to weigh in on that? Where is the state party on that?
Well, there are a number of. The truth is there are a number of different systems that can and do work around the country, and so we're not out and out opposed to a different system than the one we have. The one we have does work. Worked last night just fine.
Yeah.
So we're not out and out opposed, and I think it depends on the devil's in the details of what it exactly looks like.
Yeah.
But
are there concerns after the Coffee County breach and the fact that essentially the Trump 2020 case just went away? Are there any concerns that there's just data out there, that there might be software out there that can be used for, some deceptive means in a higher profile race like we will see in 2026 or 2028?
You always have to be, careful, with these systems, and nothing is 100%. There's that ain't life. Yeah. It certainly ain't life in this world. But to say that we're overly concerned about it or anything like that, I think we're appropriately, want to be monitoring. But we do have free and fair elections in this state, and I think that's important for folks to know and understand.
Yeah.
And that they can go and vote and be confident that their vote is going to be counted. And it, like I said, anybody can talk about a theory or anything like that, but we won last night and the votes were counted.
There you go.
And we're confident in that system.
Yeah, it's a complex issue. We have folks on either side. Even the election board, they were deadlocked on it last night when they voted. That's why I decided I want to ask, where your mind was on that. Anyway, congratulations. One House seat flipped. Got another opportunity in District 23. It's all hands on deck. Georgia Democratic Party Chair Charlie Bailey, thanks for joining the Ron Show today, buddy.
Hey, man. Thank you, Ron. Take care, brother.
See you. Yeah, some late reporting this morning from Caleb Groves at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The state election board voted down a proposal to eliminate Georgia's touchscreen voting system and switch to hand-marked paper ballots ahead of the 2026 midterms. The proposed rule failed in a 2-2 vote. They're essentially punting toward the state legislature. This is really the duty of the job of the legislature, said Vice Chair Janice Johnson, a Georgia Republican Party appointee. The vote comes after the Georgia Supreme Court invalidated some contentious rules passed last year in the run-up to the 2024 presidential election, Groves reports. The court ruled that the board, which is made up of political appointees, cannot create new rules that conflict with or go beyond state laws passed by elected legislators. Frequent guest of the show, Executive Director Marilyn Marks from the Coalition for Good Governance would chime in and say, however, the Georgia Constitution provides for privacy, and these touchscreens aren't exactly private. Just thought I would go ahead and channel her for her. Back to Caleb Groves reporting. Sarah Tyndall-Gazal, the board's sole Democrat, said she supports hand-marked paper ballots, but that, quote, this is not the appropriate vehicle for that. She's talking about the state election board. She said, we're putting ourselves at risk again of getting swatted back under the very precedent that was created to constrain the authority of this board. Some opponents of the rule feared it would be used to go around Georgia's requirement to use the touchscreen system. State law already requires using paper ballots as a backup if the touchscreen voting system is determined to be impossible or impracticable to use. Proponents of the rule said it would only clarify what those words mean. Before the vote, board member Janelle King, who voted in support of the rule, said she was on the fence about whether to pass the rule and risk a potential lawsuit. Board member Rick Jafars, who also voted for the rule, said he'd work with legislators to draft a bill that is similar to the proposal. All right, well, there you go. Anyone who's listened to this show and with Marilyn Marks on it can recognize a lot of what Caleb Groves reports here when he says that Georgia's touchscreen voting system has been a target of conspiracy theories. Conservatives distrust the machines after Donald Trump's narrow 2020 election loss, have sought to eliminate them. But this is either a nonpartisan, bipartisan, or it's been going from one side to the other issue for quite a while. The touchscreen system prints paper ballots with a QR code recording votes and human-readable text reflecting a voter's selection. Critics say they can't verify what's encoded on the QR codes because voters can't read them. Can't read QR codes. Election security advocates say the state's voting system has security vulnerabilities, though. Election officials say those vulnerabilities have never been exploited during election. As far as we know, under the proposed rule, the Secretary of State, State Election Board, or a court could determine the circumstances triggering a switch to hand-marked ballots. Proponents of the rule point to examples of when the system would be impossible to use, including when the bright screens of the upright voting touchscreens don't protect the secrecy of the ballot or when voters can't verify the accuracy of the QR codes. I'll include that story in the show notes at RonShowATL.com. Not to take away, however, again, from a big night for the Georgia Democratic Party, flipping a House district and ensuring that their candidate made the runoff for another. The GOP-controlled margin in the House now at 99-81. All right, a little bit later in the show, things got testy at a Public Service Commission hearing that, as of doing this show, is still going on. We'll tell you why when the Ron Show returns on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. So, despite the fact that affordability or the unaffordability of your power bills, Georgia Power customers, affected Public Service Commission races just like weeks ago here in the state of Georgia. Despite that, the Public Service Commission, the 5-0 completely GOP Public Service Commission that will have 2 Democrats replacing 2 of those Republicans next year, decided to go on ahead and make some agreements with Georgia Power before those 2 Democrats get on and gum up the works a little bit. Drew Cann at Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporting earlier today. Georgia Power and the Public Service Commission staff unveiled a deal Wednesday that it would allow the utility to add 10,000 megawatts of power supplies just in 5 years, an unprecedented expansion that's mostly to serve data centers. And because it's going to happen in just 5 years, it ain't going to be nuclear. Plant Vogtle took decades. The agreement, known as a stipulation, is not final. It still must be approved by the 5 members of the PSC, but in other cases where a stipulation was reached, the Commission has stuck closely to the agreement, so the deal is a preview of what the PSC is likely to approve. The deal calls for all 9,885 megawatts of new power plants and other generation sources Georgia Power was seeking to be, quote, certified, a key step that would allow the company to start construction and paves the way to charge customers down the road. The overall expansion is more than double the combined generating capacity of the 4 nuclear reactors at Plant Vogtle near Augusta. Most new electricity supplies the utility wants to build itself or buy from other power plants would rely on burning gas, which produces potent greenhouse gases that are warming the planet. Drew Cann, good reporting. The rest would come from battery storage systems and some solar. Nearly all of the new power generation muscle is needed to serve data centers, the energy-intensive computing warehouses springing up across Georgia to serve artificial intelligence and other digital products. It was at this meeting that this one woman just made some fantastic points that I've sort of, trimmed around the edges a little bit on myself.
My name is Laura Iyer, and I drove in from Athens, Georgia. And really, I have spent the last several months trying to wrap my head around what is driving a sudden push for so many new gas-fired power plants and recommissioning coal plants. And the one concern continues to rise to the top. Data centers are driving nearly all of the projected demand, and they are the reason we are being told that these plants must be built.
Thanks.
However, across Georgia, many counties are now pushing back. From urban areas to smaller rural communities, residents and local officials are raising concerns about the strain these facilities place on the grid, water, local budgets. Several counties have already delayed or rejected proposals, including mine. Georgia is being asked to take a huge financial and environmental burden to meet the electricity needs of one single industry. That puts every Georgia Power customer at real risk. We are watching a boom, but booms can turn into bubbles, and bubbles can burst. Inside the industry, companies are already exploring private power sources, seeking cheaper regions, or scaling back plans as computing becomes more efficient. Across the country, we have seen cancellations and downsizing. If this bubble slows or pops, the risk does not fall on the data centers. It falls on the people of Georgia. If these facilities do not show up or fail to buy the power being forecasted, someone still has to pay for the plants that were built. And that someone is us. We will be left with billions of dollars in new gas infrastructure that may never be needed. This build out depends on projections that maybe have not been clearly justified. If data centers scale back, the revenue disappears, but the debt still remains. If they turn to self-generation, the revenue disappears, but the debt remains.
Yes, ma'am.
And if new technology cuts their energy use, the revenue disappears, but the debt remains.
Good stuff, Laura. More on what the PSC has and hasn't done today when the Ron Show returns.
This is the Ron Show.
Heard weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now, 8 to 10 a.m. the replay, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. So the Public Service Commission hearings today actually started a little contentious. Alonda Roca at the Georgia Recorder reported that police escorted demonstrators from the PSC meeting this morning following the introduction of a surprise agreement. The surprise agreement between commission staff and Georgia Power, the utility it is charged with regulating. The commission is set to discuss a request from Georgia Power to increase the state's energy capacity, we heard this earlier, by nearly 10,000 megawatts, equal to about 5 Hoover dams. Wow. To meet an expected spike in demand because of new energy-hungry data center growth. Staff initially recommended approving only about a third of the utility's request and granting conditional approval to another third, but changed their recommendation to agree with Georgia Power to move forward with the full request. That caught a lot of folks off guard. Several people disrupted the start of the proceedings with chants of "Rein in Georgia Power" and "Power to the people, not Georgia Power," and were escorted out. According to law enforcement, no one was arrested, and some people were allowed to return to the hearing. Georgia Power spokesperson Matthew Kent said in a statement that the company welcomes all public comment during the important process, but these public hearings are in professional settings that require an amount of decorum. In exchange for allowing Georgia Power's energy build-out of at least $16 billion, with 90% of it intended to power data center growth, Georgia Power promised to lower power bills by about $100 a year in its subsequent rate case proceedings. Because Georgia Power and the Commission agreed to a 3-year rate freeze, the promised savings wouldn't be considered, not promised, considered by the Commission until after 2028. Georgia Power's CEO, Kim Green, in a statement, "This plan means more money stays in your pocket while we power Georgia's future." That sounds nice. But environmental organizations involved in the proceedings weren't convinced about Georgia Power's promise that the deal would lead to downward pressure on customers' power bills. For example, Jennifer Whitfield, senior attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center, said during lunch break that there's no guarantee the decrease will ever materialize, and it was unclear what the customer got out of the deal. She said, "It doesn't mean that in 2029, residential customers will see their bills go down. What it means is that when they do all the various accountings, they promise that if we have a rate case, which we may not, that this class of customers will put downward pressure on the costs otherwise attributed to residential customers," which is just a really long, complicated way of saying we don't know what's going to happen. Again, that's Jennifer Whitfield, attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center. Also, and I'm no lawyer, but how did this agreement come to be outside of a public meeting in the first place? More from Alonda Roca at Georgia Recorder. At the start of the hearing, Whitfield asked commissioners for additional time to review the agreement, saying they had not enough time because they became aware of it on their commute to the hearing. PSC Chair Jason Shaw said that because of the public hearings, lawyers for the advocacy organizations had the morning to review the agreement and could leave the room if they wished. There will be some more time there. We will probably not even get to the hearing until after lunch. And the hearing is ongoing and could very well go into Friday, by the way. Okay, let's move on. You heard me talk with Charlie Bailey at the start of the show about affordability and how it feels almost as if Republicans are handing the midterms to Democrats on a silver platter. However, and listen, I'm rooting for Republicans to do the right thing when it comes to ACA subsidies, because I know tens of millions of Americans are going to be affected by those cost spikes if they don't. And I don't want people to suffer just to see my party do better next year. I think my party's going to do better anyway, but I would love to see, and there is potentially some movement on those ACA subsidies getting extended. Benjamin Guggenheim at Politico reporting that a bipartisan bill to extend enhanced Obamacare subsidies has attracted 16 Republican co-sponsors, not just promise votes, co-sponsors, according to an official list obtained first by Politico. The mounting support for the legislation, which if it passes, I'm sure Trump will be like, I was all for it. Offered by Representatives Ken Kiggins of Virginia and Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, comes as House GOP moderates express frustration in a conference meeting Wednesday morning over their leadership's proposals to address spiking health insurance premiums without dealing with the expiring tax credits. Speaker Mike Johnson is also reckoning with the fact that centrist Republicans may join with Democrats to back a so-called discharge petition to circumvent leadership and force a vote on a measure that would extend the subsidies that are otherwise due to lapse December 31st. The Kiggins-Gottheimer bill would extend enhanced premium tax credits for 1 year with new income caps and guardrails to crack down on fraud. I mean, that's who would be against that, right? That's what the Republicans been complaining about. Oh, there were no caps, no guardrail, no fraud, all the fraud. The bill would also require a vote by July 2026 on other policies designed to reduce Americans' health insurance premiums. The bill currently counts the support of a total of 38 members, including Kiggins and Gottheimer. The Republican co-sponsors so far are Mike Lawler, Nick LaLotta of New York, Rob Bresnahan, Ryan McKenzie, and Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Maria Elvira Salazar and Carlos Jimenez of Florida, Jeff Andrew, Tom Keene of New Jersey, David Valadeo and Kevin Kiley of California, Juan Ciscomani of Arizona, Jeff Hurd of Colorado, Don Bacon of Nebraska, and Monica De La Cruz of Texas. No Georgia Republicans. Although, wait, Marjorie Taylor Greene would probably, is she going to be there? Well, I guess she would still be there because she's not stepping down until early January. So if this comes for a vote, isn't Marjorie supposed to want to be on? Yeah, she's just not going to co-sponsor it, I guess. We're running out of time to get this done. In less than 3 weeks, these tax credits will expire and health care will become unaffordable for millions of Americans, Gottheimer said in a statement. Notably, the new bill would also create new rules mandating expedited floor consideration of all future, quote, enhanced premium tax credit reform bills that have collected at least 10 co-sponsors from the majority and the minority parties. The language would require relevant committees in the Senate and the House to discharge such bills within 5 legislative session days. Mike Johnson ain't gonna like that. Special language would also mandate that the House and Senate vote on the enhanced premium tax credit reform bill within days of receiving the legislation from the committees. All right, let's keep a pin in that. That's some sense of optimism, right? But if that excites you, there's another wallop to the household budget coming soon for many families. Shanine Miranda with the state's newsrooms, which the Georgia Recorder is part of, by the way, announcing that the U.S. Department of Education announced a proposed agreement Tuesday that would permanently axe an income-driven student loan repayment plan in which more than 7 million student loan borrowers are enrolled. Under a joint proposal with 7 Republican-led states that challenged the program, the department, this is when Biden was president, the department would not enroll any new borrowers in the Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE plan, deny any pending applications, and place borrowers currently in the plan into legally compliant repayment plans. The program, introduced in 2023 under then-President Joe Biden's administration, was hit with legal challenges from several GOP-led states, including Missouri, and has been blocked by the courts. The initiative sought to provide lower monthly loan payments for borrowers and forgive remaining debt after a certain period of time. If a Missouri federal court approves the agreement, the department said borrowers currently enrolled in the SAVE plan, quote, will have a limited time to select a new legal repayment plan and begin repaying their student loans. The agreement stems from a legal challenge to the plan brought by Missouri, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Chris Carr, Attorney General running for governor, North Dakota, Ohio, and Oklahoma in 2024. In a statement alongside the announcement, Undersecretary of Education Nicholas Kent said President Donald Trump's administration, quote, is righting this wrong and bringing an end to this deceptive scheme. I don't see what it's so deceptive about it, though, honestly. What's deceptive are the loan terms in the first place, right? When you wind up paying like 6 to 8 times what the loan was to pay for your tuition, that's deceptive, right? When are we going to start scrutinizing the institutions that loan? Anyway, Kent saying the law is clear. If you take out a loan, you must pay it back. Thanks to the state of Missouri and other states fighting against egregious federal overreach, American taxpayers can now rest assured they will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for illegal, not illegal, and irresponsible student loan policies. Republicans argue the permissive repayment plan let borrowers off the hook at the expense of federal taxpayers. Okay, hang on a second. I've crunched the numbers. I've done the math. All right. The average American between the ages of 23 and 65. Well, I'm gonna run on some numbers here that came from census.gov. Okay, the average median household income with the householder's education being a bachelor's degree or higher is $132,700. Okay, if you have only a high school education, no college, it's $58,410. Okay, I have taken that number and said if you work from, say, age 23 to 65, that household with the college degree, bachelor's degree or higher, is going to make $5.7 million, $5,700,000 in that 43-year window, all right? Just follow me here. The household with only the high school degree will make $2.5 million. So $5,700,000 with the degree, $2.5 million without. And you're like, okay, well, that makes some sense, right? By the way, that gap has been widening over time. It's widened since 2004 to what it is now. But that's a gap of $3,200,000. Okay? Just so we're doing the math. $5,700,000 minus $2,500,000. That is a gap of $3,200,000. 15% of $3,200,000 is $480,000. You're like, well, why did you? What's 15%? 15% is like that threshold, the lowest income tax bracket, right? The federal income, $480,000. It looks to me like the average American household with that 15% tax, federal tax, it looks like if Uncle Sam were just to pay for everyone's college tuition, that's a return on investment, right? Why, yes, it is. The average in-state public school tuition over 4 years is about $123,000. Private school, $261,000. It looks to me like Uncle Sam nets on average about $480,000 per household here, and it looks to me like you could be making Uncle Sam would be making money off of an educated population. Just like the Medicare for All argument, honestly, I mean, it makes far more sense to just get with the rest of the first world on that. When it comes to universal college tuition, when it comes to universal health care, it actually makes more fiscal sense. It's funny, actually, listening to Republicans make the argument about, us just giving taxpayer money to health insurance customers instead of just putting money in the pockets of the people. We would like to stop giving money to health insurance companies, period. End of story. You're almost there, Republicans. You're almost there. In fact, let me take a quick break. We'll pick up on that discussion. Yes, Republicans just seem to be almost there when it comes to Medicare for All. I want you to listen to a Republican sounding a little bit like Bernie Sanders when the Ron Show returns on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. It was Fox News host Martha MacCallum challenging Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania to present the Republican health care plan after he blamed Democrats and the Affordable Care Act for rising costs. I'm reading from Raw's story here. David Edwards posting that story. And here is a little bit of that back and forth between the two of them where she asked what concerns his constituents right now.
But they're still feeling pinched. And the one thing that I think is universal is the deep concern over rising healthcare costs. You know, if you're a family that makes $55,000 a year, and what's happened over the last 5 years is your healthcare costs have gone up dramatically, that's a real pressure point. And it's because of the failure of the Affordable Care Act. It was supposed to deliver better quality, lower prices, and access. It's failed on all three of those. And
let's remember, by the way, how much sabotage had been put into that bill while negotiating with Republicans who never showed up to vote for it. And also that at the state level, there's been a lot of foot dragging on Medicaid expansion. Also, the 70-plus times that the GOP has sought to kill the Affordable Care Act without a responsible replacement or a replacement at all, and all the many varied in ways that they fought through the court system to make the Affordable Care Act toothless. I mean, getting rid of the individual mandate really sort of hurt. It's always, but again, let's go back to the fact that they've had no plan. And Martha McCallum challenged him on that.
That's a big issue that's looming. We in the Republican caucus, we just had a lunch talking about this, how to figure out how to deal with these subsidies that the Biden administration had put in place during COVID, try to make sure we protect working families, but do away with the fraud and the giveaways to people that make $500,000 a year. That's a real pinch. And then reforming health care in general, given what a disaster Obamacare has been, that's a broader topic. So I think even though they're seeing progress in the economy, they're still feeling the remnants of those terrible policies of both the Obama administration with health care and the Biden administration with out-of-control spending and over-regulation.
So here's the problem. Again, the GOP has had no counter-proposal whatsoever. None. They've offered nothing. The Affordable Care Act went into existence. It was passed into law in 2009 and came to be in 2010. That's 15 years. The GOP's had nothing.
So, I mean, what do you say to those, since you brought it up, what do you say to those who say, look, we're not going to extend these subsidies. A lot of this money is going straight into the pockets of the insurance companies, but who say to Republicans, where is your plan?
Yes.
You know, I know you said you were
plan?
just discussing this issue, but where's the plan that the American people can kind of get their hands around and say, well, if I'm not going to get my subsidy, I'm going to pick option B?
Well, I think there's a short-term plan and a long-term plan. In the short term, you know, we're still wrestling with how to deal with this, but I'm of the opinion that we should try to find a way to make sure that working families, those that are living paycheck to paycheck, get incremental dollars in their pocket as these subsidies roll off. But the current plan that the Democrats have, a 3-year extension of the existing subsidies, this is rife with fraud. This is uncapped on income. So these are high-income people receiving these subsidies. So the Democratic plan is really political theater. So we're going to have to deal, in my opinion, with those people that are living paycheck to paycheck with some sort of bridge. At the same time, we got to reform all of healthcare.
Yes.
Because, as I said, Obamacare is a disaster. Right. We pay 3 times more per person than any other developed country in the world for healthcare, yet bad outcomes in infant mortality and overall morbidity, and 25 million people don't have access. So this is failing. I think we're going to need to reform the system in a way that delivers greater transparency on prices. Who's making the money? Is it these big health care insurance companies? Second, we need to give the consumer more control, more decision rights. That's going to drive better outcomes. And finally, we got to have competition, cross-state competition. We got to squeeze this incredible waste out of the system. And that's going to take some real work. And while it's the Democrats' disaster that we're dealing with, we as Republicans are going to need to lead, and we're going to need to find some Democrats to lead with us to get this done.
The problem with the evisceration of the state line competition part is that what is absolutely the worst healthcare plan in a state like, I don't know, South Dakota, for example. That's why South Dakota has like a ton of corporate headquarters, because it has almost no regulation whatsoever. And so South Dakota gets these shell corporate headquarters, okay, because the corporations don't have to pay taxes in a state like South Dakota and fewer regulations. If you want to trust your health care to the state that is racing to the bottom to lure health insurance companies to their state, well, that's what you're going to get. I mean, he almost sounds like he could be on board with, I don't know, Medicare for all. Bernie Sanders posted this, what was this, 2 days ago? Great news. I can't do Bernie Sanders, especially with the sore throat. In the last month, we picked up 2 more Senate co-sponsors for Medicare for All, bringing the total to 18 in the Senate and 109 in the House. You go, Bernie. A significant progress, he writes, but it pales in comparison to the nearly 2/3 of the American people who support Medicare for All, including a majority of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. Here's what Medicare for All delivers in just 4 years. Year 1, lowers the Medicare age to 55, covers every child in America. End of out-of-pocket costs. Expand Medicare to finally cover dental, vision, and hearing. It is kind of crazy, right? That your vision, your dental, your hearing isn't covered by your health insurance. He said in year 2, it lowers the eligibility to 45. Whoop, I make it. Year 3 lowers eligibility to 35. In year 4, all Americans get guaranteed comprehensive health care with no premiums, no deductibles, no copays, no out-of-pocket expenses, and full choice of doctors and hospitals. He continues, Medicare for All would save $650 billion and 68,000 lives every year by eliminating waste, bureaucracy, and red tape, and getting every American the medical attention they need. In the richest nation on earth, health care must be a human right, he says, not a privilege. And yes, we will fund Medicare for All by asking the billionaire class and giant corporations to finally pay their fair share. But even if your overall tax burden went up a little bit, but went up significantly less than your health care premiums do, isn't that a deal you would make? I'm sorry, Mr. President, you had a question?
Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind?
I'll tell you why. Because those countries have universal health care, and they guarantee things like housing and education. All right, last thing I want to touch on for the day, and again, this just kind of goes back to affordability, right? Politico's Victoria Guida reporting. A divided Federal Reserve voted to lower interest rates again today, but officials signaled that another cut won't be immediate, a stance that will ratchet up tensions with President Donald Trump. Victoria is opining, but she ain't wrong. The decision to reduce rates by a quarter point was hotly debated within the central bank, but Fed Chair Jerome Powell was able to corral his rate-setting committee into moving forward with one more cut, the third time the central bank has lowered borrowing costs this year. Still, 3 Fed policymakers dissented. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee and Kansas City Fed President Jeffrey Schmid wanted to hold rates steady, while Fed board member Stephen Moran, who is on unpaid leave from his job as White House chief economist, would have preferred a larger cut. Victoria providing us with some background here. Trump has aggressively advocated for rate cuts all year and hounded Powell for not doing so faster. The Fed chief's term atop the central bank ends in May, and the president told Politico on Monday that his future Fed chair would or should cut rates immediately, going so far as to say it would be a litmus test for his ultimate choice of nominee. But the central, same as the Supreme Court, right? Anyway, but the central bank is facing 2 great risks that it isn't designed to address simultaneously: a weakening job market and elevated inflation, a combination that is leading to an unusually high level of disagreement within the normally consensus-oriented institution. These divisions are set to deepen next year as Fed officials debate the extent to which the labor market needs a boost and how much to slash borrowing costs when inflation remains stubbornly above the central bank's 2% target. Policymakers penciled in only one more cut next year, although some didn't envision lowering rates at all in 2026, while others thought the Feds might cut by more. The rate-setting committee, in its post-meeting statement, suggested that it is uncertain when and how much it might cut rates again in a shift from previous language. I work in the real estate industry. I'm a realtor here in Metro Atlanta. And while there may be those who go, 0.25%, that might mean mortgage rates will go down. Actually, any speculation about what mortgage rates are going to do based on a Fed rate cut are actually a little late, because the 10-year Treasury bond, first of all, will have a greater impact on that. And those who have been sort of looking at the rate cut that we got today have been looking at it for a while now, knowing that it was likely to come, and have already projected that into mortgage rates. So do not expect like a big dip in mortgage rates based on today's actions by the Fed. Just pointing that out. As a matter of fact, as of production of this episode, the average mortgage rate, interest rate on a 30-year mortgage term is about 6.12% as of December 10th. That really has not changed much in the last few months. It's been hovering in the high 5s, low 6s for quite a while. The average rate on a 15-year term rose overnight to 5.5% from 5.37% it had been sitting at in recent days. This, according to CBS News, by the way. While they are far from the lows offered in 2020 and 2021, they're considerably more affordable than they had been in the last 18 months, too, And historically, they're about in line with the average rates available in the past. Oh, that is music to my... I've been telling a lot of folks who are, what about those 2 and 3? You're not going to get that again. And if you do, then we're in some other unforeseen calamity that we just don't want, right? I want to thank Charlie Bailey, chair of the Georgia Democratic Party, for joining us today. It's going to do it for The Ron Show. Replay 8 to 10 a.m. tomorrow on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voice of via. Tune in if you want to hear it all over again. Show notes at ronshowatl.com. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.